Hello and welcome back to another Introduction to SPSS tutorial. This tutorial will cover bar graphs. So we're going to show how to create a bar graph with some nominal data. And to be specific, bar graphs really are only for representing nominal data, data that has categories. If we have other types of data, continuous variables, ordinal variables, we would use different types of graphs to represent those. But let's just focus on bar graphs for this variable. So we have two categorical variables in our data set, our bike team variable and our gender variable. So both of those variables, if we look at our data view, just capture which category each participant belongs to within the context of that data. So in order to create a bar graph, we're going to go up to the menu, we're going to click on Graphs, and we're going to click on Chart Builder. This gives us this basic dialog box that we're going to use for all the different graphs that we want to create. So for bar graphs, we make sure down here in the lower left that the bar option is highlighted, and we get 8 different kinds of bar graphs that we can pick from. We're going to stick with this very first graph, which is the most basic bar graph. We're going to drag this up into the workspace up here, and when we drop it into the workspace, we get this little preview of a graph, and what we need to do is drag whichever variable we want to represent with our bar graph onto the x-axis. So let's take the bike team variable. Let's say we want to see how many participants, or we want to graph the number of participants that belong to each bike team. So we'll drag that down into the x-axis. And at a basic level, that's really all we need to do. The default bar graph is going to suit our purposes for the most case. We don't really need to do anything with this element properties box over here. So we'll just go ahead and click OK. And what we will get in our output window is this basic bar graph. It's going to give our 3 categories of bike team over here, the cruisers, the river dogs, and the screaming wheels. And it's going to the bar graph is going to give us the number of participants, or the count for the number of participants that belong to each of those teams. Right, so we see the cruisers has a little over 30, probably like 32 or 33. The river dogs might be right at 30 or maybe 29. The screaming wheels a little bit less. But this is our basic bar graph. Keep in mind, we said at the beginning, bar graphs are really only meant to be used with categorical nominal data. What indicates that in the bar graph itself is this spacing between the bars. And so what that implies is that we could rearrange the order of these categories along the x-axis, and it wouldn't change the meaning of our data, right? Right now, they're just in alphabetical order, but that order is somewhat arbitrary. If we're going to present categorical data in a bar graph, the categories can be in whatever order we want, and it doesn't change the meaning of the data, and that's why the bars are separated like that. All right? If we have other types of data, the graphical representation will look a little different because we're going to take different meanings from those. If we're talking about histograms or frequency polygons, things like that. But for bar graphs, specifically for nominal data, we get this nice looking bar chart with spacing between the bars, meaning we can rearrange our categories and it doesn't change the meaning. It just tells us how many observations fell into each category. Okay, that was really quick but really easy. Come back and I will post another couple of tutorials on the other types of graphs that we can do as well.